Okay, let's begin. This is a threat assessment focused on the world's most critical maritime choke point. We're going to look at its direct implications for India's national economic security. And I'll be blunt, the situation is precarious. Let's get right into the briefing.
To really grasp the danger we're facing today, we have to look back. On April 18, 1988, the United States Navy and Iranian forces clashed in the largest surface naval battle since the Second World War. It was called Operation Praying Mantis. And where did it happen? Right here, in the Strait of Hormuz. This is our anchor point for this entire briefing because it's a stark reminder that this threat, it isn't theoretical. It is a kinetic reality.
So, first things first, let's define our area of operations. And I want to be very clear, we are not just looking at a simple trade route here. We are analyzing what has been, for decades, an active conflict zone. The Strait of Hormuz is the absolute textbook definition of a choke point. It's the only way to get from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. At its narrowest point, it's just 40 kilometers wide, squeezed right between Iran and Oman. Every single tanker leaving the Gulf has to pass through these highly contested waters. All right, now let's pivot. Let's move from the general threat to India's specific, and I mean critical, vulnerability. See, this waterway isn't just important to India. It is, for all intents and purposes, a primary artery for our entire national economy. Let's get precise with the numbers. Somewhere between 45 and 50% of India's total crude oil imports transit the Strait of Hormuz. Think about that. Almost half of the fuel that powers our country passes through this single point of failure. But it gets worse. When we look at liquefied natural gas, or LNG, the dependency is even more severe. We're talking approximately 54 to 60% of our LNG imports, which are absolutely critical for our power generation and our industry. They have to navigate this exact same choke point. This chart really helps visualize that dependency gap, and that disparity is what's so critical here. A reliance on Hormuz for LNG, you can see it in that taller bar, it's significantly higher than our crude oil dependency. What's this create? A dual vulnerability, a compounded risk profile for our energy security. And make no mistake, this isn't just an India problem. This strait carries roughly 1/5, 20%, of the entire world's daily oil supply. This global reliance means any disruption here doesn't just impact us. It triggers a worldwide panic, which makes any strategic response that much more complicated. The tensions we're seeing today, they're nothing new. They are part of a dangerous, cyclical pattern of conflict that has defined this region for decades. This timeline will make that crystal clear. The pattern here is undeniable. It starts with the tanker war in the 1980s, where hundreds of ships were attacked. Then Operation Praying Mantis, fast forward through multiple threats of closure to the direct attacks on tankers we saw in 2019, and all the way to the renewed threats we're monitoring as we speak. This strait lives in a perpetual state of near crisis. This map lays out our operational reality. Just notice how our main energy feeds from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, and Qatar, they all funnel into one single point before they can ever reach our ports. There is zero redundancy in this part of the supply chain. Zero. Now, watch what happens when we overlay the global choke point map. The risk becomes impossible to ignore. Our primary energy artery, that blue line, it passes directly through the most contested, highest-risk maritime choke point on the planet, which we've marked here in stark red. And here's the most crucial point. A geopolitical event in the Gulf does not stay in the Gulf. It translates directly and immediately into an economic shockwave that's felt on our streets, back home. So how would a disruption in the strait hit us? Well, it happens through three main channels. First, you'd see an immediate and sharp surge in fuel prices, petrol, diesel, LPG, all of it. Second, that price shock kicks off accelerated domestic inflation, putting pressure on the entire economy. And third, it puts severe downward pressure on the rupee and widens our current account deficit. The financial stakes here are just immense. This data point quantifies the pressure perfectly. Let's say a sustained disruption leads to just a $10 price hike. That means a $20 billion increase to our national import bill. The economic damage would be immediate, and it would be severe. Now, we have to analyze the high-impact, low-probability scenario, a complete shutdown of the strait. Is it likely? No, but its consequences are so catastrophic that we have to consider it. A full closure event would likely unfold in two stages. First, an immediate price spike. This would be driven by pure market panic, as 20% of the world's oil is suddenly taken offline. And that's followed by stage two, a sustained physical supply disruption. We're talking tankers literally not reaching our ports. Let's be absolutely clear about the alternatives. The existing land pipelines from Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they can only carry a tiny fraction of the maritime volume. They are not a viable substitute. The data on this slide is redacted, but trust me, the disparity is massive. To be unequivocal, there is no plan B that can replace the flow of energy through Hormuz.
So, this entire threat assessment leads us to a series of actionable intelligence recommendations for our national security leadership. We recommend 3 immediate actions. 1. We need to enhance our multi-domain surveillance of the Strait to improve our early warning capabilities. 2. We must expedite the expansion of our strategic petroleum reserve to give us a buffer against a supply shock. And 3. We have to intensify high-level diplomatic efforts with all regional actors to de-escalate these tensions before they hit a flashpoint. To summarize for the cabinet, our energy security is unacceptably dependent on a single volatile choke point. A closure event would trigger an immediate and cascading economic crisis. We must act decisively now to mitigate this strategic vulnerability. That concludes the briefing.